We're recording. Okay, today is June 27th, 2013. I'm Jean Richardson, and I'm interviewing Bernice Craig, who is a teacher in a rural school, and Annette Erpelding, who was her student in a rural school. And we're in Dyke, Iowa, and I thank you both very much for doing this. Okay, Bernice, where and when did you teach country school?
I think it was Washington Township,
In what county?
Grundy County. There's more than one.
Okay, I want to hear them all.
Okay,
Do you know what year it was Washington Township?
43, 44, and 45.
Okay.
And 46 I taught in the Morrison School, which was probably the same township.
Morrison?
Morrison.
Morrison. Okay. So, Washington Township, what was the name of that school? The first 43, 44. Did it have a name or a number?
No.
Or- Okay, all right. Okay,
And then I taught in Tama County.
Tama County. And it's still rural school.
What township was that?
Crystal number 9, that's the name.
Crystal?
Crystal number 9, that was the name of the school.
And that was what year?
That was 40. Oh,
I don't know, Bernice.
I don't know. Okay, all right.
when you were,
Okay.
I think Jolene's older than me.
Yeah.
I think she was the 8th grader that year.
Oh, okay. Then I would have been a year behind her.
Mm-hmm.
So, graduate 54. So that would have been like in 49?
Probably. Mhm.
Okay.
48 or 49?
Probably 48.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say 48.
Okay, all right. So Annette, where and when did you attend country school? So you were at this Crystal number 9.
Mm-hmm. I came there in 1942 when Mom and Dad moved down on the farm. And then I graduated from 8th grade there, which would have been probably 1948 or 49. 49 probably.
Would you have been in a town school before that?
I was in Lincoln, Iowa.
Okay.
It was in a town, yes, but it was like only grades K, I don't even know if they had kindergarten, up through 6th grade.
And how many classrooms do you remember? Was it just a couple classrooms too?
It was a 2-story, and 1 through 3 was downstairs and 4 through 6 was upstairs.
In different classrooms?
Yes, but I mean, I'm talking like 1, 2, 3 were all in the same room.
Okay, that's what I'm, okay.
And 4 through 6 was upstairs
So
in the same room.
Almost rural school, isn't
Yeah,
it?
almost.
All right.
Morrison's the
Um,
other one, too.
What kind of room and board arrangements did you have while you were in school?
I lived at home
Okay.
with my parents
The whole time?
until
At
I
each of
taught
these
down
schools?
in Crystal Township,
And then where did you live then?
in a farmhouse in Tama County.
With a family?
No, with my husband.
Oh, then
She
you
was
married.
Oh, yes.
Yes, she was Mrs.
Okay.
Craig.
Okay, you were Mrs. Craig then. Who were you in these other years?
I was plain, Plaehn.
Plaehn, Miss Plain. Okay. What did you wear to school? Do you remember?
Dresses.
Yeah, I think you did.
Dresses.
How far away did you and your family live?
Oh, how far was it? Up the little hill. I don't know.
the
I
hill,
would say
okay.
not even a 1/4 of a mile.
Okay.
No.
What tasks did you perform before you left for school?
Helped my dad do the chores.
What kind?
Milk the cow.
Cow.
The cow. Well, he had several cows.
Okay.
But we had to milk the cow, or milk 1 or 2 cows, whatever. Feed the chickens. I just had to do that. Sometimes we had to get in coal and for the furnace. And cubs.
What did you wear to school?
Bib overalls. And cotton stocks, cotton long socks.
Even under the overalls.
Yeah, sometimes depending on the weather. And those lovely garters, is that what they call them? Garter
Right.
belts, went over your shoulders. And then they hooked onto your socks. No? You didn't. Okay, I did, yes.
Garters to hold your socks, okay.
To hold up the socks, yes.
Uh-huh.
Mhm. And sometimes the socks were usually brown, but if they were for good, like Sunday, they were white.
Okay. Do you remember what time you left for school?
Oh, gosh. We would ride our bikes, so we would go down the hill. I don't know, what time did school start? Maybe 9 o'clock?
9
I think 9 o'clock. So we'd probably wouldn't leave till 8:45, at least 10 to 9. Depending on what was happening outside, too. If we could sled, we would go earlier.
So who did you have to ride bikes with?
My brother and sister,
Now you said your sister's a year older,
Mhm.
and the brother was.
a year younger.
Oh, you're very
Well,
close together.
Yeah, well, 18 months.
Okay. What time did you leave for school?
Probably 7:30.
And how did you get there?
I rode with another teacher that taught about 2 miles west of my school.
So she'd stop and pick you up?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So how far were you from school?
Oh, it's probably 6 miles.
Do you remember anything about these trips to school? Any of the sights or sounds or happenings?
We didn't have to go that far. I mean, probably an eighth of a mile maybe. So no.
The teacher I rode with was an older teacher, much older. So she gave me a lot of advice on the way out. You know, I can tell you some weird things.
Oh, let's hear some of it.
Okay, like Bernice, be sure you keep the screen door hooked on your door, because not only if somebody else stops, but the county superintendent may just walk in if he can get in, and all of a sudden you're teaching and you turn around and this big man is standing behind you. So I always kept the door locked, the screen door hooked. At least he had to make a noise to
Yeah.
get in.
Let's talk about your schoolhouse and its surroundings. The schoolyard, playground equipment, trees.
I think the only playground equipment we had was a teeter-totter, right? Was there a swing set there?
I don't think
I know there was a teeter-totter. It was like up on a hill, not a big hill, but a hill. And at one time there was no water, but they finally did drill or dig a well, and so it was a pump water. The bathrooms are outhouses, one for the boys, one for the girls, were out behind the school. What else was there? There was grass, but I'm not sure who mowed the grass. I don't know that. But I know like Bernice would have to come in the morning and sometimes the school, did you even lock the school at night?
Oh, yes,
Okay,
Oh,
but
yeah.
she'd have to stoke the furnace,
yes.
make sure it was warm when we got
Okay,
there.
what do you wanna know?
Anything you can remember?
Well, I got there and had to check the fire in the winter, but opened the windows, let in some fresh air. There was no fan. I did not have electricity in my school.
Did you open the windows even in the winter to get fresh
No.
air? Okay.
No, and I did have one farmer friend, Irvin Stacker, who had kids in school. And sometimes I would come and he would have the fire going, which was a godsend.
This was before you married? Or
Yes.
this was
This was before I married.
Okay. Do you remember anything different from what Annette described the playground as?
No, we had nothing but a place that was grass worn to play ball.
Yeah.
That seemed the big thing. The kids even learned to play. They played Annie over,
Over the school,
you know,
the
over the
schoolhouse, yeah.
schoolhouse, and you know,
Pum pull
make-
away.
yes, and
What was that again? I remember that.
Pum
Pum,
pull
pum.
away.
pull away.
Pull away.
Annie over.
We're giving her an education.
So what kinds of things other kinds of things did you do before the children arrived? Got the windows open or the fire stove?
Just checked everything, made sure everything was order, and just get your books out and know where you're going for the day, what you're going to be doing.
And what did you do once you arrived at school?
We would, of course, we always brought our lunch, and we took our dinner pails inside. The watering, what did you call that? The watering thing was in the basement. That's where we put our clothes, our coats and so forth, was in the basement. If it was nasty outside, like raining or something like that, we would play downstairs. So there was, in the basement, there was room down there for like recess and so forth. And then we would come upstairs, and sometimes if you had something that you wanted to have warm at dinner time, we'd put it on that great big register in the middle.
So you had a stove in the basement,
The furnace was in the
and
basement.
then the register
Yes.
came.
One in the middle of the one.
Yeah, big, it was
Yep,
big.
I had that too.
Mhm.
Some of the schools did not have, they had a stove,
Okay.
but I had that, a
Yeah,
furnace
A
too.
basement and a furnace.
Mhm.
What kinds of things do you remember that you put on that
Or if
register?
like for instance, if mom had chicken the night before, we'd have chicken the next day for dinner. Or maybe some potatoes, like mashed potatoes, something like that. And yeah, we just set them on the register to keep them warm. And then somebody walked by and kicked the jar and it'd go flying across the room.
And it was
Yeah.
usually in a jar.
Or usually a
You weren't
jar.
using
You
aluminum
didn't
foil.
have no. Usually a jar and
What's foil in 1942,
nothing
3, 4?
plastic either, like a fruit jar or something like that. It would be.
Right.
What did you do then? You've entered the schoolhouse, you've taken care of your lunch, you might have gone downstairs to play. You might have played outside if the weather was
Yes,
nice.
if the weather was nice, we would be outside until the school bell rang. And it was just a handbell, right?
Right.
A handbell, and
That
then
was
we'd
your
all
job.
come
Oh,
in.
yes, yes.
Then we'd come in and sit down and we'd get started. Remember that big sandbox they had in there? Do you remember that? It was like a table and it was full of white sand.
I don't
You
remember.
remember that? Yeah, I remember
Okay, we're gonna talk about items. You had a sandbox.
that. Yes, it was a sandbox. It was a big table like, and probably about 3, 4, 5, 6 inches deep, filled with white sand, and there was a few sandy type articles, things you could play with. I remember that.
Did you have a Victrola?
I think we did.
Yes, I did.
I think so.
Piano?
No.
No.
Tables and desks and chalkboards?
Yes.
What kinds of things did individual students and their families provide? Supplies.
We had to go, I remember going to Traer, there was a drugstore there, and that's where we got our books. I mean, the teacher would give us a list of the books that we needed, and we would go there and get the books we had. You could also take back the books you had the year before that you didn't need anymore. The paper and so forth, pencils and paper we provided.
Crayons.
A lot of times you'd use the crayons you had the year before.
What did you do once the children began arriving at school?
Got a little order.
Just a little?
Yeah, but they played outside if the weather was decent. And then they came in and we started our day.
And how did the day begin?
We usually said the pledge to the flag.
When did your school day begin?
9:00.
Yours too, you think? And what kind of activities began the day at your school?
Well, I know we said the pledge, and then we just started.
Mhm.
You know, and remember, she was teaching K through 8. way, she was teaching all these grades. There might be just one child in each grade, or there might be a grade that wasn't, maybe there was nobody in fourth grade, for instance. So then she'd have 3 and 5, but, and I know Marilee was with me, there was 2 of us in the same grade.
And there was kindergarten.
Yes, no.
I did not have kindergarten
I'm thinking no.
until I got to Morrison, then I did. But Morrison there were 2 teachers in Morrison. I taught K through 3. And this was a luxury because there was a janitor that had the furnace going and much more modern school than I had out there. But I also had many more kids. In the first school, I never had over 8, and then it dropped down to 5. And then it closed that year after I quit there.
And then how many did you have in Morrison then?
Probably 15. It
Oh.
was a lot.
What kind of supplies did the school have? Were there books?
I can't remember. I do know that I think our county superintendent advised us. I know I always went up to Latta's and bought a lot of things at Latta's before school started. Some of these things I can't remember, Jean.
Did you have to pay for those, or were you reimbursed by the district?
I think I paid for them
Yeah, that's
out of my $60 a month. But when I got to your school, I got 90.
Oh, really?
You know why? Because I had years of experience and I had 1 year of college. I was the highest paid district teacher in that area.
Really? $90 a month, just think. We've come a long way, Jean.
Oh my.
How did the teacher organize the school day's lessons?
Well, we just did. I mean, it was something you just had learned to do. I think I probably started out with the smaller ones in the morning. But of course, when you only have 8, I probably had, in that country school, I probably had 4 or 5 grades. So you kind of tried to, like reading, depends on how slow some of them were. Like you might put 1st and 2nd grade as you're teaching together. It depends a lot on your student.
I remember reading, now maybe not with you, Bernice, but I remember reading to, when I was older, like in 6th, 7th grade, to the younger ones, yeah.
Yes,
I remember
yes.
doing that.
This was something that the older students would help with the younger
With the younger
ones.
ones, yeah.
And of course, there was always that discipline problem when you're trying to teach up at your desk, because I didn't have a big table. And when I went to this school, they came and asked me if I would teach that school because they had a teacher before that the kids had. There was no control. So boy, did they test me.
This is the school that I was at?
No,
Okay,
no,
I was
the
gonna say-
first one I was in.
Oh, okay.
And I can remember, put those marbles in your pocket. Pretty quick down the aisle comes all these marbles up to my desk. And little Tommy had to stay after school, and that was a mortal sin to have to stay after school. But it worked.
So you didn't have a table for the children, so
No.
did you teach from your desk?
Yes,
Was there a recitation bench that the children would have been sitting at?
I don't remember it at all.
Would there have been a chair for them to sit in?
Yes.
Okay, so they just put their chairs around your desk? Okay. Can you think of how you worked with the children? Do you have any examples of what kinds of things you did with them?
You mean as for teaching or, well, just basically taught them reading, writing, and
Yeah.
arithmetic. That was basically,
You did everything though, Bernice. You did, I remember the music.
oh yes,
You had the Victrola, and that's where we learned all the, I think back on that, where we learned all the military songs,
yes,
because we were probably during the war then, right?
yes, well, it was.
Yeah.
You know, there's some questions on here about World War II, how we interacted with the kids. Okay, at that time, there were a lot of weeds growing in the fields, like milkweeds. And we went out and we harvested those pods because the silk stuff that was in those pods, they would use for,
Parachutes, wasn't it?
For parachutes. And so this was one of our outdoor projects, was to go out and gather. And of course, thank God I was young then. I could go out in the field with them. But isn't that interesting?
Isn't that?
And we talked about the rationing that went on, that you can't have all this. Because we're right in the middle of World War II when most of my classmates, the guys all ended up in the military.
What type of desk work did your students do while others were working with you?
Well, they had their lessons to do.
Was
And I'm
that-
sure we had some worksheets for math. And there would be, I can't remember what, nowadays, they're doing science and all this. I can't remember that at all, that we did that. I was a geography buff, so I'm sure they got a lot of geography.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember this. Well, I remember a history book that we had. It was you had it for 7th grade and 8th grade. Same book. Do you remember those, what were they called? Diddle, they were like jelly.
Oh, yes, yes, I had one of those to make
Yes.
copies.
So that's how you made your copy. I don't know what they were called, but
No, I don't
it had
either.
a smell to it. I just remember that.
Oh, yes, see,
Yeah. Yeah.
yep,
That's how she made her copies of things.
yes, we made copies on that.
How many students were in your grade? You said there was one other?
Yeah, another gal and I.
And how many were in your school then? Was this a
Yeah, it was more than that. I'm gonna say 10, 12 maybe.
I would say,
Yeah.
what subjects were your favorite?
Well, of course, I liked reading. Math was not my favorite. Still isn't my favorite. Yeah, reading, I think probably, because that's what we basically did, reading, writing, and arithmetic. You didn't branch off into other areas.
How much did you interact with this one other student during your lessons?
Well, quite a bit, because like if we had a story to read, for instance, we'd have to discuss it together.
On your own, would you do it without the teachers?
No, the teacher usually
Guidance?
was there.
Okay.
And she was good in math and I wasn't, and so I felt like I wasn't anyway, and so she'd help me a lot.
Did you help her with reading?
Did I help her with reading? No, she was probably as efficient at reading as I was.
You talked about your school went from 8 to 5. Was that one family that moved? Do you remember? The school went from 8 students to 5.
yeah, there was a hired man that lived in the area and then he moved away and they had 2 kids in school, so, maybe it was 6, but it was very few. It was kind of like a playtime. It was, talk about individual attention, they got it. But you talk about the reading. Now, math has always been my thing.
Oh, really?
And so we probably put a lot of time into learning numbers, multiplication tables, and this type of thing.
Do you remember some lesson activities that were special, that you
Not really.
particularly enjoyed or did not?
I remember trying to teach music with a Victrola.
Victor, yes.
And of course, I want to say that's a big disadvantage of a rural school. And I think the kids get nowadays.
Oh,
But yet, by the same token, I can look back on some of my students that I started out with became one a lawyer, and I don't,
oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
you know, apparently they got the basis of education somewhere. And I had never attended country school.
Had you been in one before the first day you taught there?
Oh, definitely. Well, I actually was teaching on a normal training certificate out of high school. But I was not old enough to start teaching. And if you remember Dr. Irma Plain at the UNI, she was a professor there, was my cousin. She'd had major surgery the year before, and she came and was going to start back to work. She had been off. And would I come and live with her so that she could go ahead and teach and I could keep the house and cook the meals? And as I'm number 9 out of 10 kids, and you know, that looked like an opportunity because I wasn't old enough to start teaching, and so I lived with her. And I many times regretted that I didn't keep on to go the next year, but I would have had to borrow money, and in those days, you didn't borrow money. I mean, some of my brothers did not even finish high school. You know, we were farmers, went through the Depression years. And so $60 a month looked like, well,
Oh,
this is
yeah.
a good deal.
So you lived with this cousin, and she was teaching. Did you go to
Yes.
school with her then and help at school too?
No, we lived off campus, and of course I got to know other.
Oh, so this is at UNI,
This is at
Iowa State Teachers.
ISTC.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
And
So were you going to school then?
Yes.
When you were staying with her?
Yes.
That's how
Yes.
you got to go to school?
yes,
Okay.
I took a full load
Okay.
as a freshman.
Okay.
I still do printing when I write, that it is all straight lines and curves. That's something that just hung with me. Think about it, when you make an R, it's a straight line and a curve, every letter.
Remember those Palmer writing books
Oh,
that we
yes.
had to have? Yeah, that was something else you would teach, yes.
Yes, we didn't teach printing then, it
No.
was all cursive writing.
We had these printing, Palmer writing method or something
Palmer?
like that.
Methods.
Palmer, yeah.
Mhm.
Every year was a different colored book.
This and this and this and this and.
Yes, yes. Making those circles and going up and down.
What rules did your classroom have? This might be interesting to see how teacher and student vary.
You know, I don't remember any really, really drastic rules because I don't think in our little school we had that many discipline problems.
I think I taught the kids respect.
Yeah.
A respect for me, for the county superintendent when he walked in, and for each other. And, you know, if you're talking, if somebody is at the desk in a class, you don't start talking, you're quiet back there.
And I think if you did do something disrespectful or whatever, and it was drastic enough, your parents knew about it right away.
Right,
Not too far,
right.
you know, and they handled it at home.
Right.
But, no, I really don't think we had I can't think of any drastic thing that happened.
I didn't either, not after they finally found out that I was the boss.
So what techniques were used to enforce those rules? Well, maybe you said it when you said parents knew about it.
Yeah,
And
I
that
think
was very
that
effective
was,
then.
yes. The parents found out about it and.
Yeah.
So how did you get your rules to be? You mentioned before we started that, I think it was before we started when you talked about the boy was kept after school,
Well, yes.
and that was quite
And,
effective.
and of course, he had a brother that went home, and why didn't Tommy come home with him? Well, because Tommy was naughty. But I also got an answer from the parents that this was fine, because I think the parents felt they needed the discipline because they had not had it. They literally almost run that teacher out.
How did you get the teacher's attention if you have a
You
question?
raised your hand. And then there was also a signal to go to the bathroom too.
What kind of, with your fingers?
Yes.
Yes.
One
Yeah,
finger or
one,
two
two.
or whatever.
Announce to the world what your,
Why you're
what your
going out
business
there.
is.
I think about that, how funny that is.
Why you're out there. These were outside bath or toilets, whatever we call them. Anyway, and there were two holders. But the problem we had was the kids would go in there before they'd be out for recess, so in the wintertime they'd have their stocking caps, mittens, whatnot. They would go in the bathroom before they came back into the school building, and so many times mittens or hats got dropped down into the, remember that? Or maybe you don't. Then because we lived so close, one of us would run home and get the chicken hook. That's how we dig it out
Gross.
again. How gross, huh?
We didn't really have to have too many fingers up because this was part of it. You went to the bathroom before you came in or when you went out, so that we aren't running back and forth. And besides, in the winter, they didn't really like to go out that much.
I do not remember ever being cold at school though.
I don't either. I mean, we had a good furnace. We were very
Yeah.
fortunate and
I just don't
to have that
Yeah.
furnace because down the road, they didn't have a furnace.
Yeah.
They had a pot-bellied stove.
Yeah, I just don't remember that.
What procedures did you use to prepare the students for lunchtime?
I think we made them wash their hands.
I think, yeah.
Yes,
We
we
went
had,
that was downstairs, right, in the basement?
well, no, we had a hallway, quite a wide entryway where you came in. And
Yeah,
that's
that's
where
true.
there was shelves for their lunch pails and there was hooks for their coats and places for their boots.
Even at our,
Well, at your school,
it just seems like we had, all that was in the basement.
no,
The water cooler, the,
no, the water cooler was in that hallway, entryway,
Even in her school?
well, no.
No.
Oh,
not
in your school?
in my school.
Okay, the water cooler's in the hallway.
And, I can't remember Morrison, because I think there was water in that building. See, my kids, a big boy was assigned, and he brought water from home. And it was the Billerbecks up the hill.
oh, really?
About,
Yeah. Oh.
yeah.
Big pail?
And then they had one of these crock-like coolers.
Yeah, cooler things.
Oh, with a
Yeah.
spigot on.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty modern,
Yes, it was.
Okay, and everybody brought their lunch.
yes.
And what did they bring for lunch?
Sandwiches.
I'm gonna say like a sandwich or something, if like Mom would have, like I said, chicken or something like that the night before, we would bring that. Usually a sandwich, an apple or an orange,
A cookie?
perhaps. Nothing like, no chips or things like that.
Oh, no,
nothing.
no.
No cookies?
No Twinkies.
No, everything was, maybe a piece of cake, cause Mom would bake this one special cake every other day, I think. But yeah.
Yeah, there might have been cake, and it didn't seem like cookies were a big thing either. But there was usually, only fruit would be an orange or an apple.
Mm-hmm.
And your lunch was very similar to the students'
Yes.
lunches. And where did you eat lunch?
At that desk.
Did you ever go outside in nice weather?
Oh, if it was nice
Oh,
weather,
yeah,
we
yeah,
did.
we would, yes.
Yes,
but,
definitely.
Yeah, mhm.
And then they maybe just sat on the steps of the school.
How long was lunchtime?
I think it was an hour.
Yeah, I was gonna say an hour. Sometimes though, they would shorten it, if, especially in the wintertime, if the weather, they would make it just a half an hour. And if it was good sledding, then it would be an hour. And the teacher would put like a red handkerchief or something on the door of the building. So when the parents brought their kids to school, if the flag was out or the hanky was out, that meant it was gonna be an hour, noon, or, so they would know.
Oh.
And sometimes we just have a half an hour.
So that would shorten your after, what time you went home, it made a difference.
It
so
would, we would
parents
go
knew.
home 3:30 or 4 o'clock. So the parents who picked up their kids would know. Now that probably was not you, huh, Bernice?
No.
Tell us about yours.
My kids all lived close enough, they all walked to school, and basically they all walked home, except Irvin Stacker's kids. That was a little farther, and he had the daughter had a bad, some kind of a growth on the back of her knee, and she was kind of frail, but a special little girl.
So he'd bring his kids.
Sometimes, not always, but most of the time Irvin brought them, because that was quite a ways. I would say it was probably almost a half a mile,
Yeah.
and they were small.
So what did you do at recess time?
We played Auntie Annie Over, we played Pum Pum Pull Away. In the wintertime we would sled, because everybody brought their sleds to school. In the summer, we played baseball, and Bernice knows all about that. And if you hit the ball too hard and it went past the flagpole, you were automatically out. Can you believe that? Past the flagpole, you're out. Yeah, that was our.
And why do you chuckle when you say Bernice knows about
Because
that?
I was playing ball with them, and I twisted my knee, and it went completely out of joint. And I'm on the ground, and the pain was surreal. And when I got up, that knee